are just fantastically unlucky, and it is our responsibility to help them and to feel compassion for their circumstance, genuine compassion that motivates us to take their suffering as an object of our concern. So what I argue about religion is that, yes, people do good things in the name of religion. There are Christian ministers who go to Africa to help people, but there are secular people who go to Africa to help people as well, and they go purely to help people, not to spread their dogmas, and not because they think the creator of the universe wants them to do it. And I think that is a much more noble basis for compassionate behavior. And it's time we recognized it. I mean, to believe that you have to go to Africa to help people because you're spreading the gospel of Christ is not as good as believing you have to go to Africa to help people because it is unacceptable to you that you are as lucky as you are and they are as unlucky as they are.
But I'm not sure they're mutually exclusive. I mean, is it fair to paint the religious person who goes to Africa as someone who's merely trying to gain points for the hereafter? Compassion is not the sole province of the non-believer, I think.
Well, that's absolutely true, and I'm not insinuating that. I mean, compassion is, we are hardwired for compassion, and compassion precedes religious instruction, certainly, and on some level it probably precedes our humanity. I mean, there's evidence in our primate cousins and in other higher mammals that there is a concern for the suffering of other creatures that is evidence there. For instance, mice show more distress at the suffering of other mice that are their familiars than strange mice. So this is an emergent property of our biology, I think. And obviously religious people have compassion as well. But I mean, to take this example of going to Africa to help people a little further, the problem is, we have people moved by compassion, and yet religious people have their compassion channeled within the service of their religious dogmas. So you have ministers in sub-Saharan Africa where 3 to 4 million people die every year from AIDS, preaching the sinfulness of condom use in villages where the only information about condom use comes from the ministry. You have Christian ministers preaching the necessity of believing in the divinity of Christ in regions where millions of people, literally millions of people, have died from interreligious conflict, but mostly between Christians and Muslims. This, on both counts, I argue in my book, is genocidal stupidity. I mean, this really is getting people killed. These dogmas really do spread ignorance and death. And we're not criticizing this behavior to the degree that we should, because religion is thought to be necessary to us, ennobling, our true refuge, and a true engine of moral behavior. It's not. It gives people bad reasons to be good where good reasons are actually available.
Sam Harris, the author of the best-selling books The End of Faith and Letter to a Christian Nation. Sam Harris has been a student of philosophy and religion, covering Eastern and Western traditions. He's currently doing research on the question of a neurological basis for religious belief. Sam Harris is my guest. You're listening to Tapestry on CBC Radio 1 and on Sirius Satellite Radio 137. I'm Mary Hines. You make a very interesting argument about what you call the arrogance of the believer. And I'll quote here from Letter to a Christian Nation. And this falls under the idea of what you see as the arrogance of the believer. The believer is someone who says, the creator of the universe takes an interest in me, approves of me, loves me, and will reward me after death. My current beliefs, drawn from Scripture, will remain the best statement of the truth until the end of the world, and everyone who disagrees with me will spend an eternity in hell. There's another way of looking at this, and it was put to me by a guest on the program last season. This is the argument that the unbeliever is incredibly arrogant. And the way it was put to me is this: to think that against staggering odds, life could have evolved on Earth and that we are alone and we're living out life here in this meaningless, empty universe. Does that make any sense to you, that there's an arrogance in that belief?
No, and because it's a caricature of the scientific attitude. I mean, the scientist admits he does not know how the universe or why the universe was created. In fact, the scientist admits he does not know whether that's even a coherent question to ask. For instance, to speak about the moment at which the universe was created is to invoke the concept of time, and yet here we are talking about the creation of time itself. So we're not even sure that to speak about the birth of the universe makes sense philosophically or conceptually. So the scientist has a big question mark at the back of creation, and he's not ashamed of it, he's not afraid of it, he's just being honest about it. The religious believer imagines that he can put God in place of that question mark and have explained something. I mean, and there's so much wrong with this maneuver. The first thing is that he's putting God there on the basis of no good evidence, and he's putting the Christian God there or the Muslim God there based on the fact that his mommy and daddy preached the truth of this ontology to him from the moment he could speak. He's not putting, by and large, unless he's Hindu, the three gods, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva of Hinduism. He's not putting Zeus there, and he would reject the claims that Zeus exists, whenever they emerge from any pagan community, because we all know Zeus is a dead god and a creature of the human imagination. So one thing I argue is that every religious person knows exactly what it's like to be an atheist. In the sense that every religious person knows what it's like to deny the validity of everyone else's gods. Every Christian knows what it's like not to be convinced by the discourse of Islam, not to be convinced by this claim that the Quran is the perfect word of the creator of the universe. Why do Muslims think the Quran is the perfect word of the creator of the universe? Because it says so in the book. This is a bad argument, and every Christian notices this, except they don't notice how bad an argument it is when it's coming from Christians about the Bible.
But you've used the phrase a couple of times that believers believe because they learned at the knee of mommy and daddy. Is there not room, in your view, for an adult, rational, mature faith that has not sprung from mommy and daddy, as you so derisively put it? People who come to faith as adults after a full soul-searching, heart-searching, mind-searching trek through some of the literature of the world.
Right. Well, I don't know if there's any data on this. I would expect that not many people come to a fundamentalist kind of faith, a scriptural literalism, as adults, in the same way that probably not many people take up smoking in their 40s. I mean, if they don't get you young, as the cigarette companies, they tend not to get you at all. And to some degree, that I think is probably true of fundamentalist faith. But the deeper attraction of faith is obvious. I mean, we are in an astonishing circumstance here. I mean, we lose everyone we love in this life. I mean, we die ourselves, and if we live long enough, we witness the death of everyone important to us. I mean, this is a deeply disturbing circumstance for basically everyone.
It's I've heard it's been called a wound. It's just the deep wound at the heart of being human, right?
Yeah, and we spend a lot of time ignoring this fact, not learning how to really remain open to it and discover what happiness is available to us under the shadow of this truth. We try to inoculate ourselves with religious fantasies, and the emotional dividends that this pays for people are quite obvious. And to argue that a belief in God is useful in that it gives your life meaning, or it makes you feel good, or you like the experience of going to church on Sundays, is not an argument for the existence of God. I mean, the fact that it would be nice if something were true, or the fact that believing it to be true makes you feel good, is not an argument that it is true.
I'd like to talk about Islam, because this is where in your books, in your essays, you get extremely blunt. When a Muslim says to you, this is a religion of peace, you're practically apoplectic. What bothers you about that statement?
Well, again, here we come back to the paradox of religious moderation, because I would argue that we absolutely do need a billion Muslims who believe that Islam really is a religion of peace, or should be. But the tension here is between genuine religious moderation and obscurantism. Genuine reformation within a faith and just the starkest denial about what is actually operating in the name of that faith. And the reality is that Islam is not a religion of peace by